Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I complain a lot when I hear other people talking about some new EV like the Ford Mustang Mach-E or the Polestar, and they immediately make a comparison to a Tesla vehicle. So they'll compare the Mach-E to the Model Y. And I always wonder, why don't you compare it to a regular internal combustion engine vehicle? Teslas are like 1% or less of the entire vehicle market of the world. Why don't you compare it to a best-selling SUV? Why don't you compare it to a best-selling luxury car? And I kept complaining about it, and I finally said, well, you know what? If I'm not happy about people making the wrong comparisons, maybe it's time for me to make the right comparison. So for this video, I look at some Tesla models and I compare them to the closest BMW models just to show how they compare on paper. And I think you might be surprised at what we see, particularly in one case, range. That a particular Tesla vehicle has better range than the comparable BMW. Everybody always says EVs don't have enough range. Apparently, that's not as much of an issue as you might think. So let's talk about Tesla versus BMW. Are you ready? Let's go. So I'm going to look at the Tesla Model Y versus the BMW X3 and X5. I'm going to look at the Model 3 versus the BMW 330i. I'm going to look at the Tesla Model S against the BMW 5 Series and the M8, maybe the BMW 7 Series. And I think this is going to surprise you. But let's start with the Model Y. There's a new Model Y standard range that just was released today that you can now order. That's only $42,000. This new Model Y has a shorter range. It's only 244 miles of range. It's only rear-wheel drive, where the long range and performance models are both all-wheel drive. And you can see it does 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds. But the price, $42,000, rear-wheel drive, that gives you some idea of the base entry point for the Tesla Model Y. This is the purchase price, not including the potential savings. This is just straight up about $42,000. And this is the base model BMW X3, which starts at $43,000, so almost the exact same price. And you can see it does 0 to 60 in 6 seconds, so it's slower than the Tesla Model Y. It's slower than the Tesla standard range Model Y, and it costs more. So that's just a start. Now here you can see the size. This is the BMW X3's dimensions. You can see it's 113 inches wheelbase, 186 inches long, 74 inches wide, 66 inches tall. You can see that it has a cargo volume of 63 cubic feet. I put that in there. That's with the seats folded down. And you can see it weighs 3,931 pounds for the rear-wheel drive S-Drive version. The X-Drive version is the all-wheel drive version. And you can see passenger volume is 99 cubic feet. Now here you can see the Model Y down below. It has more cargo space, 68 cubic feet instead of 63 cubic feet with the seats folded down. It has more passenger volume, 106 cubic feet. It's a slightly longer wheelbase. It's a slightly longer vehicle. It's slightly wider. It's not quite as tall. And the weight is about the same. 3920 is the weight of the standard range vehicle. I was pretty surprised to see that it's 500 pounds less than the long range and performance models. That's because it has one less motor and because it has a lot less battery pack. But you look at this comparison, so you're paying less money for the Model Y standard range than you are for the BMW base X3. You're getting more cargo room. You're getting faster performance. If you remember, it was faster 0 to 60 time. There's a big advantage here for the BMW on range. That 27 combined miles per gallon times a 17-gallon fuel tank is well over 400 miles of range, where the standard range Model Y is only 244 miles of range. I don't see that as so much of a big advantage, because the practical reality is you drive your Tesla home at night and you plug it in and you've got full range again the next day. With the BMW, you have to go to gas stations to fill up. If you're driving on long trips, it's a huge advantage for the BMW. Even then, if the Tesla will go 200 miles, let's say, and you go 3 hours at a time and you average 60 miles an hour, you stop every 3 hours, you take some time to charge up. Doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me. It's a rare trip where that's going to matter a whole lot for most people. On the whole, on a daily basis, the Tesla is going to be a faster daily driver. It's going to have more room. And let's not forget, all the Teslas come with basic autopilot, which includes lane keeping, emergency braking, etc. following. Comes with a feature that the BMW doesn't come with. So at the low end, the Model Y, it's just my opinion, in most ways you look at it, is a better vehicle than the BMW X3. Not to mention, you can get a third row now on the Tesla Model Y. There's no third row available on the BMW X3. So real quick, I also want to go through the Model Y performance versus the BMW X3M, the sport version of the BMW X3, which has a more powerful engine and higher performance. So the Model Y performance does 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. It costs about $60,000. It has more range. It goes up to 303 miles of range. And the X3 M40i, 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds, so a lot slower, and it's only $3,000 cheaper. So in terms of a performance SUV, you're getting a lot better performance out of the Model Y performance than you're getting out of the X3 M40i. That BMW weighs more. It weighs 4,244 pounds. So again, comparable weight to the Model Y performance. And on fuel capacity, it gets a little closer, the range. You multiply 23 times 17, you get about 390 miles of range on the BMW X versus 300 miles of range on the Model Y performance. You still get more range on the BMW, but it's getting closer. And I want to briefly mention, you could take a step up and compare the Model Y to the BMW X5. The BMW X5 is a bit bigger, and it has slightly larger cargo area. It's got 72 cubic feet of cargo compared to 69 or 68 cubic feet of cargo for the Model Y. The X5 is definitely bigger, but the Model Y is somewhat competitive, and the X5 is much more expensive. Before getting to the Model S, which is going to be more interesting, I just want to briefly touch on the Model 3 versus the BMW 3 Series. You can see here the Model 3 costs about $47,000 for the long-range Model 3, and it gets 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, and the range is up to 353 miles, which is starting to get close to gasoline cars. It's getting a lot closer to that X3 we saw before, the M version of the X3. The BMW 3 Series has longer range. You compare that to the BMW 330i with xDrive. They're both all-wheel drive, and you get $43,000 for the BMW. And again, you're about a second behind on 0 to 60 time. 5.3 seconds 0 to 60 versus 4.4 seconds for the Model Y long range. That's not even the performance Model Y. We're seeing that the Model 3 is gaining, and again, you start to get to this question of how relevant is the range difference? Because now if you're at 350 miles, and let's say you're going to go 320 miles on a trip, on a long-range trip, and you're averaging 65 miles an hour, you can go 5 hours without recharging. How often do you take trips longer than 600 miles, let's say, and then compare the fact again that you can charge in your garage with the Model 3. You can't fill your tank in their garage at home with a BMW or any gas-powered car. You have to go to gas stations. So look, if most of your driving is 700-mile trips, then yeah, you want a gasoline-powered car right now. But if most of your driving is around town and you take an occasional long trip, then the electric vehicle is a lot better on range because you don't have to go to gas stations during your regular daily life. But in any event, here it is. Model 3 long range, not even the performance version of the Model 3. Model 3 long range has much better performance for the price than the BMW 3 Series. So this is where I think it starts to get really interesting. Comparing the Tesla Model S long range to the BMW M550 xDrive sedan. You see the price is significantly lower for the Model S Long Range Plus, which is the low-end Model S. It's under $70,000. $69,420, a little bit of an Elon joke, but that's the price, versus the M550i, $76,800. So the BMW costs $7,000 more. They both do 0 to 60 very close. The Model S is 3.7 seconds, 0 to 60. The M550 is 3.6 seconds. Now, range is where I think it gets more interesting. You see the Model S has 402 miles of range. How much range do you think that M550 xDrive has? Are you ready? This is going to be fun. The M550 has a combined fuel economy of 20 miles per gallon. That's between city and highway combined, the way the EPA does it. And it has a fuel tank capacity of 18 gallons. 20 times 18 is 360. It has a range of 360 miles in combined driving. The Model S has longer range. It costs $7,000 less. It has similar performance, and it will go farther on a charge than the M550 will go on a tank of gas. Go out on the highway, yeah, the M550 will probably go farther on the highway. Around town, it's going to be a lot shorter. So the Model S is actually getting that competitive with internal combustion engine cars. And this is that point I talked about before. We need to start comparing EVs to ICE vehicles and stop comparing EVs to EVs. EVs are very small market share. Internal combustion engine vehicles are much larger market share. They're like 99, 98% of the market. So the goal is for EVs to replace internal combustion engine vehicles, and we only get there when EVs are better than internal combustion engine vehicles, and the Model S is a prime example of that right here. It is better in just about every way than this BMW M550 with xDrive. And I would just quick mention, it's xDrive, which is all-wheel drive. The Model S Long Range Plus is also all-wheel drive. I just want to point out here that the Model S and the 5 Series are pretty comparable in terms of dimensions. They're both 196 inches long. The Model S is a few inches wider, and they're about the same height. The BMW is an inch taller. So these are fairly comparable vehicles in terms of size. The Model S does have more room. It has a frunk. It has more space in it. The electric powertrain takes up less space. It has a lower center of gravity because of that battery underneath. You can also look at the BMW 7 Series, which is 207 inches long, so it's a much longer vehicle. It's still 2 inches narrower, and again, it's slightly taller, and this is a much more expensive vehicle. The 750 with xDrive is $103,000, so it's more than $30,000 more expensive than the Model S Long Range Plus, and it does 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. That's slower. That's slower than the Model S Long Range. BMW hasn't disclosed the full EPA ratings for the 750xi, but you see the highway mileage is 24 miles per gallon. It's very likely that that combined fuel rating is going to be down around 20 miles per gallon with a 20.6 gallon tank. You're talking very close to 400 miles of range. It might be less than 400 miles of range. The Model S Long Range Plus might be faster, $30,000 cheaper, and have more range than a BMW 750xi. We can also look at the Model S performance against the BMW M8 Grand Coupe, a $130,000 sports sedan, versus the Tesla Model S performance at $92,000. Now hold on to your hats. The Model S performance does 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds. The BMW supercar takes 3 seconds from 0 to 60. The Model S performance has 387 miles of range. The M8 Grand Coupe, 17 times 20, is 340 miles of range. The Model S has more range in the performance version. It costs $40,000 less, and it's a lot faster 0 to 60. And you can imagine how bad this is going to look when Plaid gets here with over 500 miles of range. What I just showed you is the Tesla Model S outperforms the best BMWs in cost, acceleration, and range. The ultimate driving machine is no longer the ultimate driving machine. It has been displaced by Tesla's Model S. We're seeing, as you go down the chain of Tesla, as you look at the Model Y and the Model 3, you're seeing they're generally outperforming the BMWs, but they don't have the range yet. We anticipate that there's going to be versions of the Model Y that will have the high nickel cells and structural battery pack, and they're going to start stretching that range, and they're going to start getting competitive even on range. But they're already better in just about every way than their comparable BMWs, the so-called ultimate driving machine. So here's what I'm asking you to do. This can't just be about me. I see reviews all the time from EV publications or other publications where they compare. There's a new EV, there's a Mustang Mach-E or there's the Polestar, whatever, and they immediately compare it to the Tesla. And what I'm asking you to do is when you see that, post a comment and say, or if you see it on Twitter, wherever you see it, post a comment, post a reply saying, why are you comparing this new EV to internal combustion engine vehicles? And plain and simple point, internal combustion engine vehicles have well over 90% of the market, well over 95% of the market. New EVs should be compared to ICE vehicles. That should be a critical step in the process. It doesn't matter how close you are to Tesla. If your fancy new EV is close to a Tesla, but it's not better than competing internal combustion engine vehicles, then what's the point? No one's going to buy your car. You've got to make it better than internal combustion engine vehicles. And then there's room for you in the marketplace. And it's great. And we want you in the marketplace. Our goal is for EVs to replace internal combustion engine vehicles. It's not for Tesla to outsell other EVs. We don't care about that. We want as many EVs as possible to clean our air and improve transportation, lower the cost of transportation, all the great things that come with EVs. So that's what I'm asking for you to do is when you see other people talking about some new EV and they start comparing it to Tesla, push them. No, compare that SUV to the RAV4 or the Highlander. No, compare that sedan to a Camry. Compare that sedan to a BMW. Make them do the comparison. If you pressure them to do it, they're more likely to do it. And as long as I have you here, please check out some of my other videos. If you don't mind, please support this channel on Patreon. Buy the t-shirts. I'm wearing the Machine That Builds the Machine t-shirt. This is the most popular t-shirt in my merch store. My favorite shirt. And thank you for watching.